back.
Welcome back, everybody, to the only podcast on the internet that knows that 15-year-olds are not, in fact, barely legal at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're going there.
I'm going to allow it.
All right.
I'm going to allow it
All right.
as an observation from a human man and a human person.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, yes, there's a difference between a baby and a teenager.
Yeah, yeah. And
but they're still not able to make their own decisions.
Yep.
As established by, society.
There's that little thing called law. And I'm just bringing this up for, I'm sure, reasons completely unconnected to anything we have to talk about this week.
Apropos of nothing.
Apropos of nothing.
And that's why we're doctors.
But not doctors.
I'm Dr. Silverstone.
I'm Dr. Armshaw.
And we're sitting here in our new amazing studio.
It is.
In the heart of London. To bring you, just all the simple, calm, normal things that have happened over this past.
The eternal verities. I think that's really where we have parked our Winnebago.
This is parked our Winnebago on the super wide London streets. This is why. This is why people don't pay attention to politics, because politics is boring. Politics has very little to do with your real life.
Right? Like
nothing in politics ever affects you.
No.
Ever.
Why would it?
Why would it? So this week we're going to talk about, we're going to start here in the UK because I just want to make sure that we give it enough time.
Yeah,
because
a lot.
Week.
This has been. Once again, I wake up on Monday morning and I say to myself, will this be the week where nothing happens, where we have to really scrounge for things to talk about, where we have to actually do some work? And every week I am disappointed, Chris.
Every week. When we started this show, we were thinking, okay, we would talk about what's going on in politics, but we would also think about talking about issues, the kind of bigger political theoretical issues.
Exactly, right?
Can you get it to a simplified way if people understand what the hell's going on? I think we got 3 episodes of that. We got about 3 episodes of that.
Yep.
And we haven't had one since I think April.
Yep.
And that maybe even March.
Yeah.
We did that. Because
it turns out that if you're going to talk about literally anything that's happening, you kind of have to talk about everything that's happening, because it's all connected. It's all part of a larger story, and that story is the wobbling and potential collapse of democracy in America. So, it's hard to ignore that story, especially when it consistently bleeds over into British politics as well.
Yeah, I mean, politics in the UK and in the US have often been, intermixed for decades and decades and decades.
Absolutely.
Because the two countries are allies.
Yep.
And we speak the same language.
Yep.
Which helps.
Yeah.
Which helps.
Makes it much easier for us to completely misunderstand each other.
Yeah. Especially when somebody asks you if you're all right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
That takes about 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yep.
Somebody asks you if you're all right, and you're just like, what's up?
Yeah.
Something on me? Do I look bad? Am I okay? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Did something happen that I'm not aware of?
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me probably 2 to 3 weeks before I got used to people saying, oh, that's like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Which makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Like, what's up?
Right. Exactly.
How you doing?
Yeah.
As opposed to, are you okay?
Well, it's all in the tone of voice, you see.
Yeah.
So I think, and Americans don't have a tone of voice for, you all right? Where it's just like, hey, I think if you just use the same intonation that Americans can, they got a 50-50 shot of being able to pick it up.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. And
yeah. It's also, there's the implied question, because, when somebody says what's up, you're like, hey. The response to all right is, for an American, is, let me think about it.
Right, exactly.
What a deep question.
Yeah.
Are you from the Midwest?
Because there's a whole level of extra politesse that goes into responding, I feel like, to questions from Midwesterners in America.
Yeah.
Because if they ask you something, they probably mean it, which very foreign to my people who are from New York and Florida.
Yeah, we typically do want to know how you're doing, and we want to tell you how we're doing. And it doesn't take much to crack open that safe of our feelings and whatnot, or not. Depends on where we are that day. And speaking of where you are, if you happen to live in a country that's war-torn, it helps to leave that country if you don't want to be part of whatever's happening there.
That's true. As the real estate agents put it, location, location, location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's a shame that it's basically a lottery of where you're born.
Mm-hmm.
You happen to be born in a country that may have been colonized by European power 150, 200 years ago.
Yeah.
There is a chance that that country may not be as stable as you'd think or would prefer, and you may need to leave that country because they want you to join the army, or you are the enemy,
Right.
or just because you're in the way.
Yeah, or some other country in the immediate environs has decided, actually, we'd quite like your country as well.
Yeah, call it like your country, but we don't want you in it. So you decide to leave, and you say to yourself, okay, well, I speak English. Now, there's a reason you speak English.
Yeah. Again, history, as the man put it, the past is not even over, it's barely even past.
Exactly. Right. If you think about it like this, your great grandparents, they would have called it the colonies.
Yeah.
Right. There's a reason why people speak English in a lot of countries around the world. It's because England, the UK was the biggest empire in the world for quite a while.
Yeah.
And so they
one quarter of the world's land surface.
That's right.
Was part of the British Empire at one point. So
that's right.
Pretty impressive.
So here we are in 2025 in Britain, and we are discovering that some people, and not an insignificant amount of people, like a number of people, are coming over to the country in a number of different ways. And one of those ways is by claiming asylum.
Exactly.
And asylum is an important international law concept because we often think of ourselves as saying, there's no way that we'll ever need it. Wrong. Wrong. If you're an American right now, you are now thinking about asylum more than you ever thought about it before.
Oh, that is absolutely a true statement. Like there has never been another administration in the United States where an average American could literally say to themselves, there's a non-zero, maybe not huge, but a non-zero chance I may have to bolt.
Yeah.
And
that is happening. People who can afford to leave America are leaving.
Yep.
We left over a decade ago for completely separate reasons.
That's true. I was not fleeing political persecution. I was, I don't know. I just like London, man.
Yeah.
It's a nice city.
Yeah, I mean,
it's cool here.
We got jobs here, but it wasn't easy. Patrick isn't technically an Irish citizen.
Indeed.
And I am an American who got a work permit here. But not everybody is so lucky. Not everybody has ability to go through that process. Even my process was difficult.
Not everyone has one grandparent with Irish citizenship. And that's all it takes, people. If you got one Irish grandparent, you too can be an Irish citizen. So, get those genealogy books out.
Yeah, figure it out, guys.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of asylum seekers who come to Europe because their countries are being ripped apart. And today, we're recording this on the 16th of November, 2025, which is a Sunday. The Labor Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood announced that she wants to change the status for asylum seekers. So at the current moment, asylum seekers, like everybody else, if they're in the country for 5 years, they can apply for permanent residency, and then a year after that, for everybody else, permanent residency you can apply for your passport.
Exactly.
Your
citizenship. Exactly.
And that's a big deal because if you become a citizen of the country, get a passport, you're no longer under any permanent restrictions. She decided that she wanted to change it.
Yeah. And what is she changing it to, Chris?
She wanted to change it from 5 years to 20.
Beg pardon?
20 years.
20 years.
She wants now for anyone coming into the country under the asylum process to have to wait 20 years before they can apply for, let me check here, either residency or citizenship.
That is...
no, it's for residency only.
For what? 20 years being an asylum seeker, 20 years living under asylum in the United Kingdom before you can apply for residency.
Yeah.
This is... okay, now correct me if I'm wrong, right? But so... if you're living with asylum status, right, you're not allowed to work, I think, until your asylum claim has actually been worked through, right?
Yeah.
Like, is the idea then that you'd have people who are living here under asylum who cannot work until the system actually goes through and evaluates their claim. Once they have it, okay, then they can work, they can live for 20 years, but also at any time during that period, the government might decide, well, now your country's safe and it's time for you to GTFO.
Well, if your country is deemed to be safe under these plans, you would be immediately told to go back to your country.
See, now my problem here, right, is that with this whole deeming safe thing, is that I remember another little government of the United Kingdom, not that long ago, Chris, that was talking about things like deeming Rwanda to be safe, regardless of the facts on the ground in Rwanda.
In perpetuity forever.
Yeah, exactly. That Rwanda is a safe country and it will always be safe. And also, we have always been at war with East Asia. And so it's just, I hear governments make claims like that and it gets my hackles up, because it just it sounds to me like what they're saying is we want the ability to throw people out of the country at a moment's notice. And I think what the plan is that they'd have to reapply for asylum status every 2.5 years.
Every 2.5 years?
Every 2.5 years, which is wild to me, because that is not an easy or simple or cheap process. That is a huge amount of imposition on individual asylum seekers, right? I mean, like the amount of work that they have to do, documentation they have to get. None of this stuff is simple or easy to do. But also on the part of the British states, I mean, that's not going to be cheap. That is going to be a huge amount of bureaucratic man-hours given over to processing claims for asylum from people whose claims have already been processed.
Yeah.
It's just doing a massive amount of extra work, it would seem.
Yeah, there's two things here. First off, they're adding a huge level of administration on top of what they already can't handle. So for those of you who are unaware, there's a massive backlog of asylum applications. Anyway, so if somebody comes into the country, whether it be regularly or irregularly, and that means did you come in by, effectively swimming across the English Channel, or did you come in by plane?
Yeah.
Either way, the government, and this is going back many years now, is having issues with keeping up with the amount of applications that they're getting, and instead of making that process better of processing the applications, they're just creating more barriers to getting the applications completed.
Yeah.
So this would be another barrier to getting your application completed, because every 2.5 years you have to do it again and over and over and over.
Yeah.
Second, this isn't going to do the thing I think if they want to do, but I'm going to come back to that because I want to ask you that as well. Actually, I'll ask you that now. I'll ask you in a different way. Do you think this is going to do what they think what they want to accomplish?
Honestly, I don't even know what they wanted to accomplish at this point.
It's a great question.
Do I think it's going to lead to a reduction in the number of people seeking asylum in the United Kingdom? No. No, why? No, absolutely not. Because the thing is, in the business, right, of political science, we talk about push factors and pull factors, you see, when you're describing migration. Why do people leave where they are? Why do they go to somewhere else? On the one hand, if things where you currently are intolerable, that's called a push factor. If the place you're considering going is really nice, that's a pull factor, right?
Yeah.
And if there's, people that you already know who have already moved over there, if there's like a community that you can sort of plug into, again, that would be a pull factor, And so if we apply that kind of logic here, what are the pull factors in Britain? Well, the weather, obviously, is just, job number one. But aside from that, there's, it's a nice country. It's relatively well off. It's politically stable. You're unlikely to get murdered. These are all really good things. They're good. They're good pull factors,
They're good
right?
pull factors, but they're not the pull factor.
No. But I think the British government's idea that if we make it worse to be here, if you just sort of make it a less nice country to live in, that will make people less desirous to move here, I think is ignoring the fact that the push factors of people who are fleeing violence, war, and terrorism is that violence, war, and terrorism are way the hell worse than having to make an application every 2.5 years. This extra level of bureaucratic fuckery is not going to convince people that, you know what, you're right, I'm going to stay here where I'll be killed. Makes sense.
I think the biggest pull factor, though, is combined. One, this country speaks English. Two, you'll have family here.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the other half of this problem that they will see as a problem, is that, well, they have family here. So the family can try to pull them in as well.
Right.
And you can say, I'm coming to stay with my cousin or my brother or my family. And
there's a social support network.
There's a social support network. So the pull factor is that, I mean, and remember, the UK doesn't take in nearly as many refugees as other European countries.
Right. I think the number is currently there's about 100,000 people with asylum status in the United Kingdom at the moment.
111,000 came out.
Yeah, and there's how many people in the country? Like
65 million.
65 million. Right. So that 100,000
overflowing. If you were to fly over Britain right now, it's just all gray because of the concrete and buildings, and there's no green. Specifically, as soon as you
no, this island is full up. We're all living in the middle of the Thames.
Yeah, I mean, there's no water because we had to pave it over.
Exactly.
And there's just giant high-rises like in Judge Dredd. Just megalopolises everywhere.
Yeah.
That's not the case. The other thing is that...
well, I've been misinformed by the right-wing media then.
No way!
I know.
No way!
I know.
You have been. So that's like the main pull factor, I think. And you're right. The push factor is if you're willing to walk across Europe, and I think we have to emphasize walk.
Yeah.
So you are in Sudan.
Yep.
So you're going to walk from Sudan, which is not a small country.
No.
And it's not a country that's filled with lots of freaking, lakes and way stations. You have to get from there to somewhere else, to the coast, to the northern coast of Africa.
Yep.
Then you have to get across the Mediterranean Sea somehow. You usually have to pay a horrible criminal to do so.
Yep. You are taking your life in your hands to do so. Again, which might be an indication, people, that if people are willing to risk their lives to get on a boat across the Mediterranean, that what they're fleeing is worse than that.
And then there's also the argument that, well, once they get into Europe, why do they have to come here? And as we said, it's not because you're in Europe and you don't have to stay in your first safe country. You don't have to do that. You can go to the country that you want to go to for the exact reason of, I'm an American running from asylum. I've landed in China.
Yeah.
I guess I got to stay in China. No. I'm going to,
Finally, a land of freedom.
I'm going to transit to a country where I know that I either have connections or the ability to live.
Right. But also, it makes sense if you are going to have someone living under asylum in a country, right? If they have a pre-existing community that they can plug into, if they have family members that they can live with, if they have, people that they can talk to, it makes it much easier for them to integrate. It makes it much easier for them to be able to do things like get work, support themselves. Like this is so obvious it barely even needs mentioning, because if you think about someone completely on their own in a country where they don't speak the language, where they're supposed to be somehow like getting along, well, they're probably not actually. It's going to go very, very poorly, and that can have a bad outcome for them and for that country potentially.
For the country, yeah.
Yeah.
And let's not forget that if these plans, and we'll have to wait for the detail of the plans for Monday, tomorrow, because technically she's supposed to announce these to the Commons before she announces them in public, so the Speaker's going to have a go at her for that. But more importantly, right now you cannot get a job, you don't have access to benefits if you're awaiting your asylum claim.
Right.
Which means there's a lot of people who are just sitting there kind of waiting for something, but they don't have the ability to legally get any money. If you're going to push that to 20 years, so the state's going to provide for you for 20 years, or you're just supposed to figure out how to survive for 20 years? And again, none of this information ever filters down to the people actually running away, that's the first part of the question. Second part of the question, though, is this going to achieve what they want it to achieve? You haven't answered the question yet. You've only answered half the question.
Right.
And I will help you out here.
Okay.
It will not.
All right. What is it that you think that they want this to achieve? What is it that you think what is it they think they're doing with this?
They're trying to solve the problem that they believe reform once solved.
There we go.
So
the politics.
The politics of it is to say, all right, we're going to change the system. Britain is too generous, is what she's going to say tomorrow. Britain is too generous, or too much of a soft touch. If you come here as an asylum seeker, you got to wait 20 years. And all Nigel Farage has to say, why not 21? Why not 22? Why not 50? Why not shoot them down when they're in the channel? Because, and frankly, it would make more sense for somebody to ask, just make all the questions about Ukrainians, make all the questions about Hong Kongers, make all the questions about, because this is only about brown people. It has nothing to do, if for whatever reason, and you don't want this to happen, but like some Northern European country falls into fascism, and a bunch of French people start flying across the channel and saying, I'm applying for asylum. And the Brits are like, 20 years. this policy isn't going to be for them. There will be a carve out for them, just like there was already carve outs for Ukrainians,
Right.
carve outs for Hong Kongers, but not carve outs for Palestinians. There's not carve outs for Sudanians.
Yep.
But this isn't going to solve the problem of reform.
Yeah.
Reform are going to say, Nigel Farage, not reform. It is Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is going to say this isn't enough. This
Yep.
isn't enough until you're saying I'm going to have the Royal Navy kill everyone on these boats.
Yeah.
That's what and you can't go that far. You cannot.
Wait, why wait until they're on the boats, Chris?
Why wait?
Yeah, exactly. Why not preemptively invade the countries where the refugees are leaving from? Invade them immediately. Bomb them. That'll stop the people fleeing that country. But you're absolutely right. And what's amazing to me is sort of watching the Labour Party consistently make the same mistake again and again and again of thinking we can compete with reform for the right-wing anti-immigrant vote. That this is a thing that we can win this battle on their terrain if we just push in far enough. And the thing is, I think this is because the people who run the Labour Party have never read Sun Tzu. They have never thought about how war works. Because let me paint a picture for you, if I may.
He's getting out his easel, guys.
I am, exactly. I got a whole whiteboard. I've got string and yarn. I'm going to connect a bunch of dots. So this is all perfectly normal and reasonable. But no, so consider this, right? You have two armies facing up for a battle, right? And one army yields the ground, right? They move farther back. Now, if you are the opposing general, you might think, well, good, they're yielding, they're retreating. It's time for us to really press the assault. So you rush on in after them, right? And meanwhile, what ends up happening is that you've just drawn them farther into your territory, where you know where things are.
That's right.
Where you know where ambushes can be set up. Where you can keep withdrawing into that territory, lead them in until they're so far disconnected from their own base of support, their logistics are so entirely strained that it becomes much easier to then break, envelop, and destroy them. And if you have passing knowledge of World War II, you may recognize this as literally what the Soviet Union did to the Wehrmacht. This is what happened with Stalingrad. It did not go well for the Nazis. And my point here is not that Labour are being Nazis. That would be an absurd thing to say, and that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is this. You can't outflank Farage from the right.
No.
You push farther into that territory, you're going to lose your own base of support, which is what we're seeing with Labour.
Which is what's happening.
I mean, my God, Labour is running fourth in some polls. The Green Party is all of a sudden a potential actual threat. So what's happening here is exactly what you would expect, which is that Labour is going to abandon its own base in pursuit of voters who, if they were ever going to vote Labour, are not going to vote Labour on this issue. They're not going to vote Labour because of immigration. That's why they would vote Reform. If they're going to vote Labour, they're going to vote Labour for another reason, and Labour's job is to make that reason the center of politics, right? If you're, look at the case of the United States. The election just happened. Massive turn towards the Democratic Party. And did it happen because the Democratic candidates decided that they were going to go all, fascist on immigration and on white supremacy? Did they try to compete with Trump on that basis? No. What they did was they focused on affordability, which was a thing that voters really cared about. And because that was the thing that voters were most interested in when that election happened, Democrats won.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's the ground that that MAGA has ceded.
Yeah.
They don't care about it because they're in power now.
Exactly.
So we'll leave it there for that one because, again, probably by next week we'll have a little bit more to say. And this may have been just a giant distraction from the other big story of last week, which was, is Keir Starmer still going to be Prime Minister? Let's take a few minutes to just talk about that. Is Keir Starmer still going to be Prime Minister? So the short version is that since almost the beginning of this particular parliament, the Labour government have not been doing well. They've been doing things to appease the markets, to appease reform, but not to appease their own voters, to not appease the left. And it's been hurting them. They are, as Patrick said rightly, approximately somewhere between second and fourth, depending on what polls you're looking at. The poll of polls that I'm looking at has them at 18% on average.
Ouch.
Underneath reform at 29%. That's 18% with the Greens at 15 and Tories at 17, the Lib Dems at 13, and then S&P implied. You care more about the regional polling for them.
Yeah,
of which
obviously.
they're both ahead in their, I think,
In their
implied
respective
numbers,
domains.
in their respective areas and nations. So it's now becoming very apparent to labor members that it might be time for Keir Starmer to go, and I have feelings about that. And I'm writing a paper about it.
Ooh.
I'm sorry, I'm not writing a paper about that. I'm writing a paper about something else.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, but you could. The important thing is that you could.
The
write
important
a
thing
paper
is that I
about
could, and I should.
Yeah, exactly.
The publisher died, and and so there's a man named Wes Streeting who is the health secretary who is apparently on maneuvers, and they believe that he is trying to position himself as the next leader of the Labour Party, as in sooner not later, to the point where Labour has had to declare that if, first off, they pushed Streeting into a corner. This is number 10. They pushed Streeting into a corner where he has to declare his loyalty, but that only lasts as long as a piece of string. And they've also basically said if Starmer goes, we'll have a general election.
Right.
Which is the big threat.
Well, of course. And it's an indefeasible threat, ultimately, because if Labour has a general election right now, that's the end of the Labour government. Like, they have another, almost 4 years, basically, right? Where they could continue to string this along. They could continue to be in power, and they could hope for a miracle, or maybe even, I don't know, do things to make the country better. Maybe at some point they'll try that. When they're desperate enough, maybe they'll try, improving.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Not necessary.
No? Not
but
so much.
they have time left. But at the same time, party loyalty means so much. The reason that this is being pushed forward is because there were elections in Wales, just kind of like in the States, and by-elections have been going on since Labour took office, all across the UK, all across UK, all across the UK, all across the different nations, and whether they be at a council or whether they be members of parliament, or MSPs or MSs, as you would have in Wales. Labour aren't just losing; they're losing badly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not, and this is the first year of a first-term government. They're supposed to be doing okay, right?
Yeah.
They shouldn't have taken this massive hit immediately. And if you're taking this massive hit immediately, you need to start showing signs of improvement.
Yeah.
Almost immediately, because. Sure, maybe you need to have people take short-term pain for long-term benefit.
Right.
But you have to declare and explain why and say, this is how we're going to protect you, and that's also not happening.
Yeah.
So
there's been a remarkable lack of ability to just level with the country and say, here's the plan, here's what we're doing, here's how long we think this should take, and here's why we think this is going to make things better. And I think if they had been very clear with the country upon coming in, where we need to do these things for the bond market, if we do these things, here's why it's going to benefit us. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But after a year or 2 years, things will be better, and here's what we're going to do then.
Yeah.
That would be the kind of thing that a political consultant, I think, would smack you in the face for even daring to suggest.
Yes.
But ultimately, you can't just you can't pretend that everything is perfectly fine when everyone can see that it isn't.
Well, yeah, and they've also said, in their manifesto, which means a lot more in the UK than it does in America, their promises to the people that they weren't going to raise income tax. And then for the last 2 weeks, they were going to raise income tax, and apparently that's not going to happen anymore because some magical money was found. But
except what they are doing is freezing they're freezing the threshold, right? Which is going to mean people paying more money in income tax, but only... The only people who are really going to feel it are the people with the least money. So that's, just a bang-up job by the official party of the left. Raise more money from the poor so we don't have to raise taxes on the rich. I don't understand why they're having trouble running against reform.
For the many, not the few.
Yeah.
And it's, the story is not dead. It's still floating around. But I wonder if this new asylum policy isn't designed to distract us from the potential fall of a Starmer government. And I'm not going to have fans for saying this, but I don't want this government to fall at this moment.
No, because
with the current polling,
yeah,
you don't want Doge in this country.
yeah,
You don't want people on the streets pulling your friends and family out of their cars, out of their schools, and there's absolutely zero reason to expect Reform not to do that. The first thing that Reform want to do is to take the UK out of the ECHR, which you might read as, oh, he's going to sort out the immigrants. I read it as that's your right, that's your freedom of speech.
Yeah,
because that's also in the ECHR, and once you start messing around with that stuff, that's it.
Look, that's the thing. It's one of those. It's exactly one of those things of like, this is how fascism works. It's how fascism has always worked, right? Is to get the majority, or at least a large enough chunk of the majority, to look at a minority as being beyond the pale.
The problem.
Right.
The
problem, not part of
Yeah.
the people. You deal with them, and then everything gets better, right? And in order to do that, however, you need to basically smash the idea of the rule of law. You have to smash the idea of equality before the law. You take away law and you replace it with arbitrary power, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the only way to be able to say, well, these people who normally have the protection of the law, we're making an exception for them.
Yeah.
And as Carl Schmitt, the Nazi jurist, put it, he who decides on the exception is the sovereign.
That's right.
So ultimately, that is the kind of politics that cannot and does not stop with, oh, well, we just use the exceptional power against that one group of people we said we were going to use
That we
it
all
against.
don't like.
Right, exactly.
But it's just us that don't like them.
Well, that's the thing. It's going to be, there'll be somebody else next. Because
Yeah.
once you agree that, oh, no, exceptions can be made, exceptions will be made.
Yes. And with that, we're going to take a little break, and
Yeah.
we'll be right back. And we're back.
It may have seemed to you that we were only gone for just a minute or two, but honestly, that was like a 37-hour break. I feel refreshed, Chris.
It is December
Yeah?
37th.
Indeed. Yep.
No, it's the same day.
Yeah. No, we just took a little breather. We took a little breather, and now we're diving back on in. And so,
yeah.
yeah.
So why don't we talk about something wild that also happened last week, which is Donald Trump threatening to sue and will sue the BBC first for £1 billion,
A billion pounds.
and now for $5 billion.
Wait.
Dollars? No, dollars? Is it dollars?
I mean, it's probably dollar. I don't think Donald Trump necessarily understands the concept of currency. I think he may just sort of like assume that everyone uses the dollar. I don't know. That's probably unfair of me to say about Donald Trump, and that's probably one of the few things I could say about him that is unfair. To be fair,
It's a dollar. Sorry.
Sorry?
It's a dollar.
$1 billion.
$5 billion.
$5 billion. Okay, so now this is new. I hadn't heard about this. What's this shift
okay.
towards?
So
Yeah.
let's not spend too much time on this because this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Short version is that BBC Panorama, which is kind of like Nightline, which is kind of like a long form political kind of it looks at issues in the country, and they do a lot of investigative reporting, kind of like 2020.
Exactly.
If that show's still on in America. Or Nightline.
I mean, I would say
don't think
60
Nightline's
Minutes,
still
but
on.
60 Minutes has now been thoroughly compromised. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
What
Or-
60
or-
Minutes used to be.
What 60 Minutes used to be before CBS capitulated to Donald
Exactly.
Trump. And so the short version is that they do investigative reporting. And so during the 2024 election, they had they did a piece on both Trump and Harris, in which they put together the clips of Trump on January 6th inciting the mob to kill everybody.
Yeah. The attempted overthrow of democracy in America that we all saw because it happened on live television.
Happened on live television
Yeah.
in front of all of our eyes. I watched that speech when Trump said, "We're all marching down to the Capitol, and I'm going to march with you."
Yep.
Which then he didn't. And then at the end of his speech, he said, "If you don't fight, you lose your country. If you don't fight like hell, you're going to lose your country."
Yeah.
Something like that. And everybody knows the background to this. The MAGA folk were planning this from the beginning. All of it was a lie. There was no way to stop the counting of the election. The election had already happened. The certification is a ceremonial thing.
Yep.
So MAGA was lying to its own people, and then those people, when they got busted and put in court, they said, "I was following the orders of Donald J. Trump."
Yeah.
At which the court allowed them to say that as their reasoning for doing this.
Yeah.
So Panorama puts these two clips together, but they smoosh together the parts where he says, we're going to the Capitol and you got to fight like hell. And for some reason, and that came out last year in the United Kingdom, nobody saw it in America.
Yeah.
And then it came out last week that Donald Trump decided that I'm going to sue the BBC for $1 billion because of that. And the BBC then had to apologize to Donald Trump.
Why did they have to apologize, Chris?
Because he was angry.
That's not actually a reason to apologize to Donald Trump. I'm sorry. Here's the thing, right? If we're going to take his claim seriously here, right? Yeah. It's the idea that by them smooshing together the two pieces of the speech, right? That it may have given people the false impression that he was trying to encourage a mob to overthrow democracy.
Right.
When in fact, he was simply encouraging a mob to overthrow democracy.
Yeah.
Right. So, my problem here is that I don't know exactly why everyone is pretending that, oh no, Donald Trump really has a point about how it was it was deceptive of them to link together two things that he literally frickin' said in the midst of this speech to make clear what it was that this speech was intending to do, because that's exactly what it caused people to do. It's just amazing to me the number of people in the media in this country who seem to be willing to just sort of accept as, well, of course, obviously, Donald Trump should be treated differently to literally every other politician. We should pretend that things that are perfectly fair to say because they are true cannot be said about him.
There's two things there. One, Trump is on, and MAGA on, a huge crusade to erase history. And I think that's the main reason they want this thing gone, because it's so clear and obvious, and the BBC in this particular area is credible. Two, there's a huge push in this country from the right wing and from, fascists who want to get rid. I'm going to pull that back, because they aren't all fascists. They just want to get rid of the BBC because they think the BBC is not right wing enough, despite the fact that the BBC over the past 10 years have had tons of conservative members put into the highest positions, including the guy who just Tim Davies, I think, who just had to resign because of this event. And all week in Parliament, of which I work in for the S&P Westminster Group, so on and so forth. Even this week, all of the right-wingers in Parliament were like, this is outrageous, and the BBC has gone too far, and they're untrustworthy. And that was put together with GB News. Now, GB News was not in London this week. They were in the White House and got a premier question from Caroline Leavitt.
Now, that's interesting.
Asking about, hey, how are you going to screw over the BBC? I'm just asking, as a non-partial observer, GB News,
right?
Who's like the UK's equivalent of Fox News on steroids. And I also find it just, first off, there's the attack upon the independence of the BBC, which is not run by the state. It is a state broadcaster, but it isn't run by the state. It's independent. Although I think the Culture, Media, and Sport Committee, I think they have a say in who might become the president or director general or something. But I'd have to look that up.
I mean, the whole culture of the BBC, though, over decades, was built towards independence from the government, where the editorial decisions that are made are not directed by the state. They're not directed by politicians. I do think one of the nastier parts of the BBC story, especially over the last 10 years, as you pointed out, is that the Conservative government, when it was in, really started doing everything it could to try to suborn the BBC, to basically put conservative partisans into decision-making power, into places of power, basically, in the BBC institution. And obviously, the left wing is always going to say that the BBC is too right-wing, and the right wing is always going to say that the BBC is too left-wing. The problem is more the partisan push towards bringing the BBC more under the control of the governing party. And so I think this is a problem. I do not think it at all justifies the claim that therefore the BBC is just entirely uncredible.
A giant leftist machine.
Right.
Which is what Trump has called it.
Well, exactly. So, the thing is, the BBC is one of the most credible news organizations in the world. It is deeply respected.
The World Service is huge.
It has problems. Every institution has problems.
That's true.
So, it's one of those situations where basically I think what we're seeing here is a full court press to destroy an institution that is a place that you can get news that is basically credible, where you can actually have, something to compare the things that politicians say to in order to say, oh, those guys are lying about this.
Yeah.
And
a credible source of facts for the most part.
Yeah.
I have separate opinions on this, but I wouldn't say it is completely devoid of bias, but I don't think that the bias in this case was shifted towards Trump, especially given the makeup of of those in charge of the BBC currently and during the time of the 2024 election.
Yeah.
It's just nonsense. And further to that nonsense, how do you sue a thing in a different country?
I mean, okay, so the claim is that because the program was shown in America, that therefore American courts have jurisdiction over this. And that's true. And that's true. If it was shown in the United States, then if, there was defamation involved, then yes, blah, 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 blah. Now, that said, a few things I can note here as someone who has, a passing knowledge of the law. Number one, if you're going to be suing someone for defamation in the United States and that person is a public figure, and Donald Trump is the most public of public figures, then you need to show what's called actual malice. Now, actual malice doesn't mean that you were activated by hatred. It means that when you made this claim about them, A, this claim had to be false. B, it had to be defamatory in the sense that it could cause, harm to that person's reputation. And not only was it false and it caused this harm, but also the person who published the statement knew that it was false or acted so recklessly as to whether or not it was true that ultimately it still counts as malice, right? Where it's just like, I don't know if it's true or not. I don't care to find out. Why would I let the facts get in the way of a good story? Here's this thing that is defamatory, right? That's what Donald Trump would have to show about them. So if you're the BBC, what do you go to court and you say, well, look, he said these things. He did say these things. The video was him saying these things. We put together these two clips because they showed what that thing was doing. This is not an obscene thing to say because that crowd then did go on to try to overthrow the government.
They did the thing that he said they wanted him to do.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, and he did not stop them from doing it. He took no steps to stop them from doing it for hours. Even as they were violently assaulting police officers in an attempt to prevent the election from being consummated, right? So, I mean, if you're the BBC, this is not a hard case to win in America. The threat here isn't that Donald Trump will win in court. The threat here is that he will cost them so much money in legal fees that they'll back down.
I disagree. And here's why.
Okay.
According to the BBC, it did not have the rights to put that show out in America. It never showed in America.
Oh.
In 2024. It did not have according to the BBC, it said it did not have the rights to and did not distribute the Panorama episode on its U.S. channels. So it wasn't on BBC America, and I don't believe it was on and it wasn't on iPlayer because you could only get that in the UK.
Right.
And it wasn't on YouTube.
Well,
so
then it wasn't published in America.
So if I, as an American, could never see it, then how?
But what if you had a VPN, Chris? This whole segment brought to you by NordVPN. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, you'd have to find the one American who would claim and could prove that they specifically hijacked and broke into the BBC and lied about it because in order to watch the live pirate, you have to sign up and there's a license fee issue. So the whole point here is that we spent more time on this than I thought we would. The whole point here is that this never aired in America during the election.
Yeah.
So where's the harm?
Yeah, and you really do need to show harm to be able to get anywhere with this. This is exactly the absurd case that everyone knew it was the second that he started saying it. What's shocking to me is watching the leadership in the BBC fall at his feet as if this was real.
Well, they are rampant Tories.
I mean, I gotta say, the cowardice on display by the leadership at the BBC over this is just that's the scandal.
And let's talk about more cowardice.
Ooh.
We're going to jump. That was our bridge to America.
That's pretty good.
Now we're in America.
All right.
And last week, you might remember we were talking about the shutdown and how the Democrats had done so well in election.
Yep.
Some momentum was being created.
Yep. In a very strong position politically.
In a very strong. Americans were agreeing that it was the Republicans' fault. It was MAGA's fault for doing all this stuff. Planes were getting canceled, which is bad.
Yep.
And then 8 members of the Senate Democrats decided, you know what? I don't think we're doing very well out of this. I think we should agree with the Republicans in the Senate that we're going to go to their side of the aisle on this one, and we're going to get some real good concessions in exchange. Do you want to know what those concessions were?
I would love to know what those concessions are, Chris.
They wanted a vote on the floor of the Senate about the ACA Obamacare credits.
Yeah, the subsidies, right?
The subsidies.
Yeah. Okay, so they get a vote, and the Republicans agreed to vote for the subsidies, right?
That is incorrect.
Oh.
They agreed to have a vote.
They agreed to have... Now, when you say they agreed to have a vote, did they, sign a legally binding contract, where they exchange any hostages or whatever? What was the...
That is incorrect.
Oh, so it's just so the Republicans said, yeah, sure, we'll do that, buddy.
Yeah.
Smiles.
It's a yeah, buddy. Okay, so let's just get this thing out. All right, so first off, let's open up the government again, and then I'll definitely call you later.
Yeah.
And that's what's just happened in America. The shutdown is over because we did technically hear about this last week after we'd finished recording. And I first thing I said to Patrick was Fetterman.
Yeah.
Fetterman was one of the 8. Angus King was another one.
Yep.
Who was independent.
Cortez Masto. It's exactly... If you're the kind of person who wastes your life following the ins and outs of the Democratic Senate caucus, it's exactly who you thought it was going to be, basically.
And it's also important because none of those people are up for re-election.
Yeah. Funny that.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is that there are people who have been saying that they think that basically the Senate Democratic leadership under Chuck Schumer had basically decided that there was no more juice to be squeezed out of this particular orange, right? That ultimately the Democrats had gotten as much as they were going to get out of the shutdown, and the danger was that if it continued, the public would turn against the Democrats. Because if things were bad, and they were going to get bad, and it's already the longest shutdown in American history.
And we're getting close to Thanksgiving, and
exactly.
Flights are already getting messed with. So to then say, in 2 weeks' time, you might have 30% of all flights. You would have ruined Thanksgiving, and then it's just.
Well, that's the thing. That would be the kind of thing where you don't really know how that's going to land. So there are people who think that Schumer basically was just trying to keep those 8 people on board past the election. Just get past the election, let the Democrats win big, and then basically fold. And I'm going to play devil's advocate on this. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment and say...
We're swapping sides.
We are, a little bit. They did it. Which is this. The Republicans were not going to agree to the extension of the ACA subsidies, despite the fact that doing so would be politically to their advantage. And refusing to do it is politically to their massive disadvantage. The popularity of these subsidies is huge. We are talking 70% of America thinks, yes, extend the subsidies. Obviously. People are already getting letters about your health insurance is about to go up $500 per month next year.
If you're lucky.
Right? So, this is a situation where there's a huge amount of America that is suddenly going to find, we're talking tens of millions of Americans, a lot of whom vote, all of a sudden, facing a ruinous choice between going bankrupt trying to pay for their health insurance or not having health insurance.
Yeah.
And that is the kind of thing that would lead to even more people that would lead to insurance premium going up and people having to choose between having insurance or not having insurance. And the only people who are going to choose to have insurance when it's that expensive are people who are incredibly sick and very expensive to insure, which causes premium to go up. This is a death spiral for Obamacare, right? So for the Republicans to refuse to extend those subsidies is politically insane, right? And it's also clear the Republicans they're going to walk into that buzzsaw.
Happily.
Yeah.
Happily, for reasons we'll get into in a second.
Yeah. But so the argument then, and I'm not saying I 100% agree with it, or even that I agree with it, but I see the merit in the argument, is that you keep the government shut down until the Republicans agree to extend the subsidies. And the Democrats were saying, yeah, extend them for 1 year so that the election can happen next November and everyone can make a choice and decide, do we want to keep the subsidies? Vote Democrat. You want to get rid of them? Vote Republican. Right? If you're a Republican, I don't know why you would think that that's an unfair thing. That is what you want to do.
Fairness is not their thing, though.
No, obviously not. But so, because the Republicans were not willing to do even that, right?
Yeah.
At that point, the decision is keep the government shut down permanently. And that risks incredible instability. That risks, that's
It's not good.
Well, that's the thing. That's the kind of thing where basically either you're really pinning your hopes on the revolution, or you're, just sort of willing to gamble with the possibility of like societal collapse and civil war. And if you know anything about Chuck Schumer,
Okay.
this is not a man who'll be manning the barricades anytime soon. But also, the Democratic Party is not a revolutionary party in the slightest.
No.
Right?
It's a very Ming Boz, keep everything safe.
Yeah, I think that there's some middle ground between those two things that perhaps could be explored.
There definitely is. I think the Dems need to be a lot more punchy. I think that they need to take a lot more risks. Say things, that will not make the markets happy, but it's America, so you can say these things.
Yeah. I mean, for God's sake, like, how many decades have the Republicans been able to, slash taxes and borrow a shit ton of money in ways that normally make markets very unhappy, but, America's so big, it can do that.
I mean, even now.
Yeah.
I mean, the entire tariff plan is nuts.
It is.
So I mean, the shutdowns happened, but it's also created a space for something else to happen. Now, because the shutdown was over, and this is a benefit of the shutdown being over.
That's true.
The bill that was in the Senate has to go to the House, and the House has to open as well. And remember,
because it wasn't the Senate just agreeing to the bill that the House had already signed.
Correct.
You're right. The House had to come back to reopen the government.
Which means that Mike Johnson, Squeaker in Chief, had to bring all of his Republicans back into the same building at the same time, and he had to allow them a vote to, let Trump win.
Yep.
But that means he also had to let the representative from Arizona, what is her name?
Adelita Grijalva.
Thank you, because I can't pronounce her name. Adelita Grijalva.
Grijalva.
Yeah. So she was finally able to take her seat in Congress after, I think, 7 weeks after she won.
I know. It's an absolute fucking scandal. Like, just a total denial of democracy and a denial of, like, the role of Congress. And for a speaker to do such a thing, like,
letting you know where they are democratically.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but of course, the reason that Mikey Boy didn't want her didn't want her in the House was because she gets to sign the discharge petition.
She sure did. She was vote number 218.
Vote number 218.
The magic number, people.
Which means that this week, there's going to be a vote in the House of Representatives on releasing the Epstein files. And at the same time, the House Judiciary Committee released 3 emails.
The Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee released 3 emails. They absolutely did. And I think we could talk very quickly about those emails.
Yes,
this is only 3 of them, right?
It's only 3.
What could be in those 3 emails that would be worth talking about for an extended period of time, Chris?
Well, we might take a little bit more time than usual this week because in one of the emails it declared that the person in the email said, "Oh yeah, Donald Trump spent hours with this person in our house."
Oh, now this person in the email that said that Donald Trump had spent, I think it was 5 hours one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims in the person who's writing the email's house.
And this was all redacted.
Yeah.
Hang on, we'll get to why it was redacted in a second.
Oh yeah,
but it was from Jeffrey Epstein himself.
That's right, it was Jeffrey Epstein writing in an email about how Donald Trump had spent 5 hours with one of Epstein's victims in Epstein's house.
Who was he writing to?
Oh, I believe he was writing to, what's her name, currently serving time?
Ghislaine.
Ghislaine.
But she's not really serving time, is she?
No, she's got a puppy and free toilet paper.
She's got a puppy, free toilet paper.
She's
getting weighted on hand and foot.
I swear to God, she's a fucking convicted sex felon who is being given special treatment to be in Club Fed in Texas, and she's got special treatment in Club Fed. Like, it is, I mean, wow. And These are emails that prove that she was lying when she spoke to Todd Blanche.
Correct.
The president's lawyer slash...
Who's also, who happens to work in the Department of Justice.
Who just so happens to work in the Department of Justice.
But here's the problem. So, and I think the Democrats played a blinder on this one. Because, so, the Democrats only put out 3 emails. And they redact a whole bunch of information in the emails.
Yep.
The Republicans then say, that's not fair.
Yeah.
The person redacted was Virginia Giuffre.
Yeah.
Giuffre,
yeah.
And so Virginia is the person that Donald Trump was spending time with, and she has declared that nothing bad had happened between them.
Right.
But you know what? Even to prove that nothing's wrong at all, we're going to release 20,000 emails.
They released 20,000 emails. Now, what's really interesting, Chris, is that there have been some analyses done on those emails now, right? Because enough time has gone by. And what they found is that out of about, I think 2,800 emails that were analyzed, Donald Trump's name comes up in 2/3 of them.
Out of 2,800, so they're just a little over 10% of the emails.
That's the thing.
And Donald Trump's name comes up in what?
In 2/3 of those emails.
Jesus, hang on.
Yeah. Over 1,600.
1,600, yeah.
Yeah. So, 24,000 emails, more or less. His name comes up in about 1,600 of them.
That they've looked through so far. So,
Bill Clinton comes up in 500. So Donald Trump is mentioned 3 times more than 3 times as much as Bill Clinton is. So it is very, very interesting to watch Donald Trump's sudden declaration that he is going to tell Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, to open investigations of Bill Clinton and Larry Summers and other Democrats. When holy hell, he's in 2/3 of the emails that were analyzed so far.
But there is no issue with him, of course, because he claims that nothing is wrong. Everything's fine, punch was served. But this has also created a huge problem in MAGA land.
Yeah.
Because of these 20,000 emails, his name comes up. There are lines in there about Putin. There are lines in there about all people from around the world, creating even more chaos, frankly, than there are more information. But what the problem for MAGA is as we talked about time and time again, the core of their movement is you're either a racist or you're a conspiracy theorist. I think there are a lot of people around MAGA, people who voted for Trump, right? Voted for the Republicans because they thought he was going to deal with affordability.
Right.
I'm not talking about those people. And even if they partially think this, I'm talking about your Benny Johnsons. I'm talking about your Ben Shapiro's. I'm talking about these people who peddle this stuff, the grifters. You know, their job now is to try to find a way to spin this stuff. And when you have Trump preventing the release of these and his name in it so often, you're going to start seeing a degradation in the loyalty of the MAGA party. And it's fully started with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
It really has. She is now officially persona non grata with Trump. Trump has reverse endorsed her.
Yesterday.
Yesterday. Basically. And she is now reporting that she's getting all sorts of death threats.
Yes.
And the thing is, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, is if she wasn't already someone who had a knack for politics, she's rapidly become someone with a knack for politics. I think she's realized that the MAGA train, insofar as it existed before, that's basically gone. There's going to be something after Trump. And she is going to be in a position to ride that wave. Thank you very much.
Or potentially be the person after Trump.
Well, that's the thing.
This is interesting.
I think she's been moving away from the whole conspiratorialism, right? You know, and perhaps part of that is having gotten into Congress and seen how things actually work and been like, oh, I had a silly way of thinking about how things actually worked. I'm still
Looney Tunes.
A vicious Looney Tunes fascist. But I can take a look at this and be like, okay, I misunderstood the nature of the beast. Okay, let me reconnoiter a little bit, basically.
Let me reposition myself. Somebody who hasn't repositioned herself is Megyn Kelly. We got there, folks.
Megyn Kelly.
So just to give you some background here. MAGA world is trying to figure out how to make this sound not as bad. And one of the
and to be clear, what sounds quite bad is Jeffrey Epstein telling Ghislaine Maxwell he wasn't telling Ghislaine Maxwell, he was telling, was it Michael Wolff, I think? Of course Trump knew about the girls because he asked Ghislaine to stop.
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So I mean, like, what we have is Donald Trump. I mean, and these are emails from before he was a politician. These are emails from 2011.
Yeah.
There is no reason to think that Jeffrey Epstein was like laying a false trail in the documents in order to baffle us 14 years after the facts. Like, this is about as strong an indication you can get that no, Donald Trump absolutely knew what Epstein was up to.
Knew what he was about. Yeah.
Yeah, and did not see it to be enough of a problem to, I don't know, go to the cops.
Figure something out about it.
Yeah, he's willing to cover for him.
And here's the issue: is that in order to cover for him, in order to create the space for Donald Trump to maybe, I don't know,
wriggle out of this one.
Megyn Kelly declared last week that, there's a difference between a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old.
Right. Yeah, and she described it as a situation where Jeffrey Epstein, he wasn't a pedophile. It's not fair to call him a pedophile, you see, because pedophiles, they go after children who haven't hit puberty yet. Whereas, really what this is, he just, Jeffrey Epstein just like the barely legal look. Which, again, it must be said, 15 years old, that's not barely legal. That is illegal. That is illegal in America, in every state. That is illegal in the United Kingdom. That is illegal.
It's illegal.
Yeah.
And yet we have MAGA doing their absolute best to, it's not even mental gymnastics. It's mental, 4-dimensional chess with themselves to try to figure out how to make this sound not as bad as it would and pretend as if this is okay. And everyone knows if it wasn't Trump, if it wasn't MAGA, they would be going absolutely crazy about this.
Of course.
And yet, first off, Megyn Kelly's allowed to still do her thing and be on a talk show. I mean, anyone saying that seriously would be done.
Yeah,
be done.
Well, it's an indication basically of just how much ground MAGA has had to cede on this, right? Because ultimately, you only give up territory if you can't defend it, right? And you can't defend Trump anymore by saying, well, of course he knew nothing about it, because now we know he did. And that means that you have to take seriously the possibility that, he was involved in the raping of children, along with Jeffrey Epstein, his best friend, for over a decade, right?
Yeah.
And if you're going to take that seriously, and you can see that's the thing you might want to be prepared for as a supporter of Donald Trump who is going to continue to support him, then that means you need to find a way to say that what Jeffrey Epstein did wasn't that bad.
And that's where it is. It's that what he did, what they're trying to say is what he did wasn't that bad, right?
Yep.
And so when it comes to this week, now everyone was talking about the discharge position, right? Which is important. But it needs to have a vote in the House of Representatives. And there should be enough people in the House of Representatives to get it out of the House of Representatives, as in the House has released these files.
Yep.
But I think it has to go to the Senate as well.
Yes, and Donald Trump can veto it.
And So just
go on.
Before you go. So when it gets to the Senate, that's going to be the problem, because who are the senators that are going to either defend protecting the pedophiles' files, or the people who are going to break with Donald Trump? It is seen that Marjorie Taylor Greene might be the litmus test. She might be the canary to say, can I survive? And it might be literally, can she survive? Because,
as the death threats, right?
The people, and she, remember a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, she's saying, I am of sound mind, I am of sound body, I am not suicidal.
If anything happens to me, it weren't me.
So the question is like, if they're able to get this on Donald Trump's desk, right? He vetoes it, which means you didn't even need a 2/3 vote in both houses in order to get it out. But Donald Trump vetoing the Epstein files, that's where you want, if you are pro releasing the Epstein files, you want this on Donald Trump's desk, and it shouldn't be a partisan issue, and now it is. Like this thing, like Jeffrey Epstein's a partisan issue.
But that's the thing. This makes the Republicans, if the Republicans vote with Trump on this, the Republican Party becomes the party of protecting pedophiles. Like there will be no way to talk about the party as a party without mentioning, and of course they're the ones who protected Jeffrey Epstein's fellow pedophiles. And the thing is, if you're a Republican elected official, right? This is the nightmare scenario. On the one hand, you can't vote to protect pedophiles. There's no coming back from that. As a human being who has to, like, live in your own mind for the rest of your life, to think to yourself, and of course there was that time of protected pedophiles. No matter how much of a fascist you are, that is going to be a bridge too far for some people. On the other hand, going against Donald Trump, that could be physically as well as politically dangerous, right?
Yeah.
This is a man who, after all, has committed murder repeatedly in the Caribbean. Like, he's killed over 40 people. He is absolutely fine murdering people without any basis in law. So, if you are a Republican politician, that's in the back of your mind.
This is also Venezuela, by the way. We need to be very clear that he's done the drone strikes in America yet.
But he is perfectly fine committing murder.
Yeah.
Because he has committed, and I am saying this, I think that as a legal statement, and this is a thing that I would defend as being literally true if I were to be sued for defamation by Donald Trump, that man has ordered the murder of people in the Caribbean without any support in law. This makes him a murderer, and it makes everyone who's followed his orders to do it a murderer. And honestly, at some point there will be rule of law again. And when that happens, I would hate to be any of the people who think that following orders is a defense. Because there's a lot of very, very hanged Nazis in Nuremberg who could testify, if they were still alive, that doesn't work as a defense.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
so the next few weeks it's going to get weird.
Yeah.
Because now, how does Mike Johnson protect Trump anymore?
Right.
I don't think, unless he
Can
prevents
he?
the vote. I don't think he can prevent the vote from happening.
I mean, he could effectively prorogue the House, right?
Well,
he could send everyone home on vacation. But
I think he can. I think you can. You can put everybody in recess again. Right?
Yeah. And he has the power to declare it unilaterally.
Yeah.
Is the thing that the Republicans gave him, the power to declare recess unilaterally,
right. Yeah.
which is a hell of a thing, quite frankly.
Oh,
but
well, I mean, again,
if he does that, everyone's going to interpret that as, oh, he's protecting pedophiles.
He's protecting Trump. Why? And again, the question is why? And he just sits there and smiles like, I don't know why the Democrats made me recess the House. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I at some point, I mean, and it is at the Epstein files. This is the reason they're working so hard to prevent the releases, because their base relies on the idea that Bill Clinton is a dangerous pedophile.
Yeah.
He might be.
Yeah.
We don't know.
And if he is, and there's evidence of it, I want that evidence. I want that out there.
Yeah.
If there is evidence that he has committed crime, if there's evidence that any high-level Democrats have committed horrible crimes against children, I want that evidence out there, and I want investigations, and I want convictions.
We should know who they are, where they should be put.
For
they should
God's
be put on trial.
sake, right?
Yeah.
And it tells you something about where the Republicans are at as a party, that they think that it is a reasonable thing to say, oh, well, if you keep wanting to punish our pedophiles, we'll go after your pedophiles. Do you want that? And it's like, yes, obviously we want that. Why wouldn't you want that?
And again, that's just the weird argument here. Is like, hey, your guys might get affected. And I'm like, well, they're not my guys if they're doing this.
Yeah, of course.
And so, again, we'll keep an eye on what's happening here before we start going round and around and around in circles about it.
Well, before we sign off, can I
Okay.
put forward what I think is the thing to watch out for with this upcoming vote on the Epstein files?
Okay.
So here's the thing. There are rumors going around that there's upwards of 100 Republicans in the House who, if this discharge petition, like if the vote actually comes down to it, that they'll vote for the release of the files.
Right.
And if that happens, I think that's the dam bursting. Because if you have that level of defection from Trump, it's an indication that Republican politicians understand the politics of defending pedophilia are so toxic that they simply can't do it. And if you see that happen, that gets you to the 2/3 of the House, right?
Yeah. No, I think that you're right. I think that... Is there more?
Well, yeah, because I think if that does happen, the pressure on the Senate to agree to pass that bill and to pass it by enough to overcome a filibuster, and even potentially enough to overcome a veto, is going to be massive. Everyone will be looking at Republican senators, and everyone will know that this is the vote that will matter. I think that basically the situation is that the politics of this are so absolutely toxic that if anything breaks Trump's power as the person who is the unquestioned leader of the Republican Party, this is it. Now, if it's like a bare majority in the House, yeah, then that analysis does not stand. And who knows what the hell will happen.
Yeah.
But I do think that in the November elections next year, a lot of people, perhaps a majority of Americans, will be basing their vote on what happens with these upcoming votes.
I think you're right. And I think with that, I think we're just going to put a pin in here.
That's probably a good idea. Put that pin back in the grenade.
And see where we get to next week or whenever these votes happen. We'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Because this is, I mean, it's one of so many issues. I mean, things that we weren't able to get to. The Supreme Court, I think last week, or maybe the week before, looked at the tariff case.
That's right.
Which we should talk about because it didn't sound like it was going good for Trump's people. Again,
don't mess with the money, people.
Don't mess with the money. You heard it here first. And you know, and we'll have to see what happens with the UK budget, which will be next week as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Those are two topics we can talk about. But until then, and as always, I'm Dr. Silverstein.
I'm Dr. Ramshaw.
And we are doctors,
but not doctors.
Good night.